In the previous lesson, we introduced the purpose of this course. We learned that time management is not about filling every minute, working constantly, or completing the longest possible list of tasks. But understanding the purpose of time management leads us to an important question. What exactly is time management? That is the focus of this lesson. What is time management? What time management really means. Time management is the intentional process of deciding how to use your available time, attention, and effort. It involves determining what needs your attention, what matters most, what action should happen next, and how your responsibilities should be organized. The expression time management can be slightly misleading. You cannot control time itself. You cannot slow it down during a demanding day, stop it when you need to rest, or add extra hours when you have too much work. Time continues at the same rate for everyone. What you can manage is what you do within the time available. You can manage your decisions. You can manage your commitments. You can decide where to direct your attention and effort. You can also decide whether a request should be handled immediately, scheduled for later, clarified, or sometimes declined. Therefore, time management is really about managing yourself and your choices within time. Time management is more than scheduling. Planning and scheduling are important parts of time management, but they are not the complete picture. A person can create a detailed schedule and still use time poorly. A task list may contain 20 activities, but it does not automatically explain which activity deserves attention first. A calendar can show where you intend to be, but it cannot make decisions for you. Effective time management also requires judgment. You must recognize what matters, understand your real capacity, direct your attention, and follow through on your decisions. Having a plan is useful. Using that plan intelligently is what creates progress. A practical example, Daniel at the design studio. Let us consider a practical example. Daniel Cho is a junior architect working in a small design studio. His main responsibility today is to develop part of a client presentation for a new building design. The presentation is important because it will help the client understand the proposed layout and make decisions about the next stage of the project. Daniel begins the morning intending to work on the design. However, several smaller requests soon appear. A colleague asks him to locate an old drawing from a previous project. Another person asks whether Daniel can make a minor visual revision to a document. A supplier sends a question that does not require an immediate answer. Daniel also notices a few formatting problems in an unrelated file. Daniel wants to appear helpful and efficient, so he responds immediately to every request. He searches for the old drawing. He makes the small revision. He replies to the supplier. He corrects the formatting problems. Every action feels useful. Every action gives him the satisfaction of completing something. But each time Daniel returns to the main design, he must remember where he stopped and rebuild his concentration. By the end of the normal working day, Daniel has been active for many hours. However, the most important part of the client presentation is still incomplete. He stays at the studio late to continue working. Now consider 3 questions. Was Daniel inactive? No. Did he work too few hours? No. Did he direct his attention toward the responsibility that created the greatest value? Not consistently. Daniel's misunderstanding. Daniel confuses fast responses with effective action. He believes that answering every request immediately proves that he is productive. He also associates long working hours with good time management. But visible activity is not always meaningful progress. Some of Daniel's smaller tasks were legitimate. They needed to be completed eventually. The problem was that he treated every request as though it had the same urgency and importance. He did not clarify when the supplier needed an answer. He did not ask whether the visual revision could wait. He did not protect enough attention for the design work that required deeper concentration. Daniel is hardworking. His problem is not a lack of effort. His problem is that his day is being directed by the arrival of requests rather than by intentional decisions. A more effective approach. A more effective approach would begin with clarity. Daniel should first understand the expected result and deadline of his main assignment. When another request arrives, he should avoid assuming that it requires immediate action. He can ask when the result is actually needed. He can record requests that should be handled later instead of interrupting his current work. He can also complete a meaningful stage of the building design before reviewing smaller responsibilities. This does not mean ignoring colleagues or refusing to help. It means responding with judgment rather than reacting automatically. Effective time management helps Daniel decide when to continue, when to pause, and when another responsibility genuinely deserves immediate attention. Time management in different contexts. The same principle applies outside an architectural studio. Imagine a tailor managing several custom clothing orders. The tailor cannot control the passage of time. However, the tailor can consider fitting dates, material availability, customer commitments, and the amount of work each order requires. The results depend on the sequence of decisions and actions. Different professions require different systems, but the central principle remains the same. You manage what you do within time. Common misunderstandings to avoid. Misunderstanding 1. Time management means controlling every minute. Effective time management does not require a rigid plan for every moment. Real life changes and useful plans must allow adjustment. Misunderstanding 2. Time management means working faster. Speed can be helpful, but only when you are working on the right activity. Completing low-value work quickly does not create meaningful progress. Misunderstanding 3. Every request deserves an immediate response. Some requests are genuinely urgent. Others only appear urgent because they have just arrived. Clarify the need before changing your direction. Misunderstanding 4. A task list automatically creates productivity. A list stores information, but it does not replace decision-making. You must still decide what deserves attention and take purposeful action. Key takeaways. In this lesson, we explored the meaning of time management. Time itself cannot be controlled, stopped, saved, or extended. What you can manage are your decisions, commitments, attention, effort, and actions within the time available. Time management includes planning and scheduling, but it is broader than both. A schedule is useful only when it is supported by realistic decisions and consistent action. Through Daniel's experience at the architectural design studio, we saw that working long hours does not necessarily mean using time effectively. Daniel was active and hardworking, but his attention was controlled by incoming requests. As a result, his most valuable responsibility remained incomplete. Effective time management helps you move from automatic reaction to intentional action. It helps you decide what deserves attention, what can wait, and how your effort can contribute to meaningful results. Now that we understand what time management means, the next step is to examine why time deserves such careful attention. In the next lesson, we will explore time as a limited and valuable resource.